All right, welcome back. We'll make this a very quick video on Sentinel values. Sentinel values are simple numbers that the user could input that will end a condition-controlled looping activity. So, for instance, I think it's better to think about it in terms of a problem again. Let's say I had a problem that I wanted to average an undetermined number of test scores. I have no idea how many there are. It might be different every time I run the program, and that's fine. And I'm going to be given a sheet that's going to have a bunch of scores, and I just want to come up with the average of all of them. Now, manually, yes, I could type in each one and then keep track and count each one and then divide by the number there are and so on and so forth. And that's exactly what I want to program. But since I don't know how many scores there's going to be, I need a way to get out of the loop. There's a condition here. Scores are generally only valid numbers if they're between 0 and 100, or at least that they're positive. You never really have a negative test score. So what I can do is I can base my condition on the score. As long as the score is positive or not some number that I choose, I can continue to add these numbers up and then find the average of those. So here's essentially what I have. I have my declarations is going to be a score. This will be the score that we put in, whatever the test score is, a total, which will keep track of the number of scores that should be set equal to 0 to begin with. I have a number of scores, which again should be set equal to 0 to begin with. And then I have an average, which I'll calculate later. Here, I'm going to have the user input a score. They're going to put in a score. It might be something like 78, right? While the score is not equal to -1, I want to do some things. -1 is my Sentinel value. Okay, as soon as they enter -1, I will no longer be doing these three things. And therefore, that won't be part of my average set. It won't be part of the number of scores. And that'll be the way I can exit the loop, because once I do enter -1, this is no longer true. It's actually false. And I get out of the loop and I can do these things the rest of the program. So -1 is considered my Sentinel value. It's the value that exits the loop for me. Okay. So they input a score, say it was 78. It's not -1, so I'm going to do these things. I'm going to increase total by 78. I'm going to increase number of scores by 1. I'm going to get a new score. Again, the change to the control variable is something you need inside every good while loop. I'm going to get a score. That score is 95. Guess what? It's not equal to -1. So I'm going to increase my total by 95. I'm going to increase my number of scores by 1. I'm going to get a new score. Eventually, I'm going to keep going this process, and eventually I'm going to want to enter -1. When I do enter -1 is no longer not equal to -1. This condition becomes false. -1 is equal to -1. So I don't want to do it on that case. If this is false, then I don't increase the total by -1. I don't increase the number of scores. I don't get a new score. All of this is void, no longer works as soon as I enter a -1, which means I go on to calculating my average and I display it. So Sentinel values are actually really easy to work with. It's a nice way to have a condition controlled loop based on some sort of user input, or maybe there's a file you're processing, you're looking for an end of file marker or whatever it may be. But it's some way to keep track of a loop and work it an undetermined number of times. It's based on a condition. It's just that that condition is usually coming in as different values or different words. You could make your Sentinel all sorts of things. Your Sentinel could be words. It could be something like quit or exit. Usually it depends on the data that you're working with. In my example, I'm working with numbers, and so I wanted my Sentinel value to be something numerical so that I don't have to go through a bunch of conversions and type conversions and things of that nature. Um, but you do whatever it is you need to do in your problem to make it work for you. Make your Sentinel easy, make it short, make sure the user knows what it's going to be. Obviously, when I input my score here, my prompt is going to say something like, enter in a positive score or -1 to quit. I'm going to make sure the or -1 to quit is part of the prompt so the user knows how to get out of it, because they need to know what the Sentinel value is going to be. So that's something you'll have to make sure is part of your programs as you start working your way through. But again, I wanted to share the structure with you. The flowchart for this would be identical to what we've done in the past. So follow those models in the previous examples to build a flowchart for this. And obviously coding it up, we'll talk about the coding segments a little while when we get to some Python specific problems. Other than that, again, if you have any questions or comments, let me know and I'd be happy to help.